anime. It is such an interesting part of entertainment in the modern day, in all aspects and regards. From what I generally see, people either love anime with a burning passion or hate it furiously, with only a few people taking a moderate view on the subject. Considering that you're watching this video, I'm going to assume that either A, you like my videos, or B, you love anime, probably to a high degree and want to find out about some of the more obscure animes. Maybe you've watched them all and you just want to find some of the hidden ones. Well, today we're going to be doing just that, going down this iceberg with commonly known animes on top and more obscure, dark and hidden stuff on the bottom. That's the way the iceberg works, for anyone that's unaware. Now, let it be known that I've seen quite a few anime movies, but I haven't seen too many shows. Even still, regardless, I'm going to give this my best go. And by the way, it would be impossible for me to mention every anime ever made, so please don't get mad in the comments if I don't mention your beloved. There's just so many here. And also, I have COVID, so apologies for my voice. Anyways, without further ado, let's go! Hentai! Is this a sexual cartoon? Yeah, let it be known that yes, this actually is on the top tier of the iceberg, in case you somehow don't know what it is. Hentai is anime porn. There's nothing else I need to say about it. We're moving on. Pokemon is quantifiably the most famous franchise, or at least the most profitable franchise of all time. In fact, the property has grossed $100 billion since 1996, meaning that it's earned essentially the exact same amount in its run than the entire Super Mario franchise, the entire Harry Potter franchise, and the MCU all combined. This thing, while still huge today, was another behemoth back in the late 90s and early 2000s. While the vast majority of its fortune is comprised of its merchandise and video game sales, an argument can be made that a lot of those merch sales, for example, are only possible because so many people watched the anime, which was a cultural zeitgeist of the time. The rundown of the show is that Ash Ketchum from Pallet Town's life is changed forever when he turns 10 and is legally allowed to leave the house and travel unsupervised around the country with a bunch of other kids, with only their Pokemon for accompaniment. They must then make their Pokemon fight each other until one is injured so severely that it is knocked out or dies. Oh yeah, and they must also evade a group of national criminals involved in a local crime syndicate that's headed up by a mafia-style leader. Kind of fucked up when you think about it, but either way, everyone knows it, everyone loves it. What more can I say? Murakanime, also known as non-Japanese anime, is exactly what you would think it is, just by what the title suggests. It's anime that wasn't created in Japan. It takes on the visual aesthetics of anime and the visual style, despite not being from the art style's country of origin. It's weird to think, but I'd definitely say that based on the percentage of Western anime created compared to other Western animation, most of the time I find that Murakanime tends to be very good despite being a small percentage of shows. We're talking like Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is one of the greatest shows of all time, the original and better Teen Titans, Samurai Jack, and many, many more. While obviously a vast majority of the best anime comes from Japan, every now and then this style can be adopted somewhere else to create some really, really impressive shows. Sailor Moon was an extremely popular anime that ran for 6 years between 1991 and 1997, and despite being off the air for 24 years now, it's developed an intense cult following between itself and its fans. The show follows a middle school student called Usagi Tsukino, who befriends Luna, a talking black cat, who gives her a magical brooch, enabling her to transform into Sailor Moon. From there, Sailor Moon and Luna form a group of fellow Sailor Guardians that are designed to save Earth from the evil Dark Kingdom. There's also this other mysterious hidden figure named Tuxedo Mask, who's so dreamy and cool, completely unlike this other guy at school who's totally undreamy and uncool. Ugh. With their dynamic heroines and action-oriented plot, many credit Sailor Moon for reinvigorating the magic girl genre of anime, being both extremely popular at the time, but also to this very day. In total, the franchise has generated $13 billion in worldwide merchandise sales as of 2014, with a lot of that being due to the manga fans, but you also know that a lot, if not the majority, bought merch because of the anime, just because it was so huge at the time. The Death Note TV series is one of the most popular and prestigious animes of all time. with exceptionally high reviews from both audiences and critics alike. The show began in October of 2006 and ran for 37 episodes, wrapping up in June 2007. The show, as with most anime, is an adaptation of a manga. This one in particular was adapting a manga of the same name that began all the way back in 2003 and ended in May 2006. So this TV series was using the momentum of the ending of the manga, and it worked exceptionally well. The story follows Light Yamagi, a teenage genius who discovers a mysterious notebook, the Death Notes, which belong to the Shinigami Ryuk, and grants the user the supernatural ability to kill anyone whose name is written in its pages. The series centers around the question of whether it's fair for one person to play God. Where do we draw the line between the serious crimes and relaxed crimes? Is capital punishment ever okay in the first place? What if it's not brought on by the state but instead a vigilante? Can they take the law into their own hands? The story gets even more interesting when people figure out what's happening, and it's down to an elite Japanese police task force led by the enigmatic Detective L to try and apprehend whoever's responsible. There are twists and turns throughout the story that keep it interesting to watch, which I won't go into here, but it's generally regarded as one of the best anime shows, one of the most popular, definitely. Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. This is one anime that people won't shut the fuck up to me about, so I just thought that I would include it here because I'm sure a good portion of the people watching this video will be stans of the show. However, for those that might not have seen the show, it began in 2012 and has so far had 157 episodes under its belt, running for 4 seasons with a 5th season in current development. Just like Death Note, the show is adapted from a manga series, this one being written and illustrated by Hirohiko Araki. The series follows the Joestars, a family whose various members discover that they are each destined to take down supernatural foes using powers that they possess. These powers are often referred to as stands, I believe. The story is split up into unique parts, each following a member of the Joestar family, who typically have names that can be abbreviated to the titular Jojo. The title of the story doesn't actually reference a particular character, it's more about all of them as a collective, with the show having many protagonists. Anyways, I don't have anything more to say, so let's move on. I just want to get these first few over quick. The well-known Studio Ghibli movies I'll talk about briefly because, for the most part, these are some of the most internationally spread anime that are enjoyed by weebs, yes, but also by just casual fans of movies. Some of the more popular Studio Ghibli films that I hear the most about include My Neighbor Totoro, Howl's Moving Castle, Princess Mononoke, and probably most iconic of all, Spirited Away, which at one point had to be my third favourite animated film. I've seen a few good Ghiblis now, but there's just something about the simplicity of the films that always make me come back for more. However, having even said that, the company has also proven that it can strike out in the opposite direction and go for something crazy and imaginative, which it also does fantastically well. Almost everyone knows the company, everyone loves it too, it's brilliant. Yuri on Ice is the first and only sports anime that I'll be talking about today, and it's right at the bottom of the casual anime fan tier, so after this we're going to be going into the stuff that are deemed as weeb tier or lower. The anime ran for only 12 episodes between October and December 2016, but in recent years has gone down as one of the more impressive first seasons of an anime. Written and directed by Sayo Yamamoto, the show follows 23-year-old Japanese figure skater Yuri Katsuki, who develops mixed feelings about skating and puts his career on hold after crushing defeats in recent tournaments. However, after he is reintroduced to Viktor Nikiforov, a Russian figure skating coach, he decides to have another go, with the two developing a romantic relationship throughout the rest of the series. The show generally received positive reviews, with most praising it for its depiction of Yuri and Victor's relationship being unique and straying from conventions. Others argue that their relationship isn't explicit enough. However, director Sayo Yamamoto stated that he faced a lot of censorship in regards to their relationship. Anyways, on to weeb tier, and again I apologise that I won't be able to fit all of your favourite animes into this video, because there's just so many here. I don't want this video to be 7 hours long, and I don't want to make any part 2s or 3s. Even so, Agretsuko is up next on the list, and yeah, I don't really know what else to say about the show other than the fact that it's weird. I watched the pilot in preparation, and my interpretation from the episode was that it's about this red panda called Retsuko that hates her job and her life, and because of this she lets out all of her pain by singing death metal karaoke. She's 25, single, and her life isn't really going anywhere, so she has a lot to shout about. The show began in April 2018 on Netflix, being adapted from a bunch of shorts that were aired on Tokyo Broadcasting System television. The show thus far has ran for 3 seasons, with the most recent season coming out in 2020, and the show being renewed for a season 4 last winter. Weird show, at least based on the pilot episode, and they're only probably going to get weirder from here on out. We spoke about the well-known Ghiblis earlier, but now it's time to talk about the lesser-known Ghiblis, but don't worry, we will make it quick. In total, I've seen 8 Studio Ghibli movies, which included all of the ones I spoke about previously, but also Miyazaki's last film, The Wind Rises, as well as Kiki's Delivery Service, which those 2 I'd say are like moderately well-known. But then I've also seen The Cat Returns and From Up on Poppy Hill, which are definitely some of the more obscure Ghibli films. All 8 minus 1 I actually quite liked, so definitely check them out if you haven't seen them and you like Ghibli films. We're going to be talking about Beastars next, which is yet another Netflix original anime. Yet another one that also follows anthropomorphic animals, with this one being about the cultural divide between herbivores and carnivores, similar to Disney's Zootopia. The manga was first written and illustrated by Paru Itagaki, and the television adaptation aired back in October 2019, with the second season coming out in early 2021, with both of them receiving positive feedback. Again, as with Agretsuko, I've watched the pilots, so that gave me a little taster into what the show is actually like, and what I can say is firstly, the show is animated really weirdly. Don't get me wrong, I actually think the show's pilot was good. I think that it's got an interesting premise, but there's something about the constant movement with everything on screen. The show follows a wolf named Legoshi and a white dwarf rabbit named Haru, and their struggles to fit into their society's expectations of what they should be like based on what they were born as. Legoshi is a carnivore, but he has quite a suppressed personality and has to try and hide his more terrifying traits. Haru, on the other hand, is looked down upon by everyone else and they want to protect her because she's just like a small bunny, but she's actually quite intelligent and independent and doesn't like to be patronised. In fairness, the show is very similar to Zootopia, like in a lot of ways, but I hadn't heard of it before today, so it's at least obscure to me. So I've spoken about country humans before on this channel back on the controversial art Iceberg, but I don't think I have ever seen a show that almost works off the same premise. That was up until I saw Hetalia, which I think that's how you pronounce it. By the way, I'm probably not going to pronounce like anything right in this episode, but you just have to deal with it. Hetalia Access Powers is a bit of a weird name for a TV show, but hey ho. The show began in 2009, however was cancelled on Kids Station broadcasts soon after, because similar to Country Humans, one major criticism that many have is that their country wasn't portrayed correctly. This happened when Koreans said that their country was insultingly represented, and so the show was moved to online streaming, I believe. That's at least what the Wikipedia says here. The show seems to be a brief history on each country, their highlights and how they came to be. The show was cancelled in 2016 after 139 episodes, spread out between 6 seasons. Yamada-kun and the 7 Witches is a harem rom-com that ran for 12 episodes back in 2015. The show is yet again adapted from a manga, this one being written and illustrated by Miki Yoshikawa, with the original manga series being published between 2012 and 2017. The plot follows Ryu Yamada, who one day accidentally swaps bodies with Urara Sirashi, the ace student of the school. He realises that the way to switch back is to kiss. One thing leads to another, and the two make a club at their school. The club is based around like kind of supernatural powers and stuff, and the other witches, that the title of the story might suggest, join. And all of their different and various powers can be activated by kissing, and from there there's a lot of different things about memory and who can know about the witches and their powers. From what it appears, this show is kind of just similar to a few shows of the same genre. Its story and visuals aren't as out there as, say, Beastars or Hetalia, so I think it's just more obscure because it's less popular rather than being more offbeat or niche. Onto the hardcore weebs, Anne of Green Gables is right at the top of the list here, and it definitely has a good reason to be here because of all of the shows I've mentioned so far, this one is by far the oldest. It ran for 50 episodes, which to be fair is quite a lot compared to many of the previously mentioned entries. However, these episodes came out between January and December 1979. The show is 42 this year. This historical slice of life follows the titular character, Anne of Green Gables, who is a girl raised in an orphanage. While Miss Marilla is surprised at first, after Marilla learns of Anne's sad past, Anne gradually becomes an irreplaceable member of the Cuthbert family. As I said before, I think that this one is more obscure because A, it's hard to find online, just because Anne of Green Gables is a classic story, but B, and more predominantly, just because it's so old. Love, Chunibyo, and Other Delusions is an anime based on the idea of Chunibyo, which for those of you who don't know, is a Japanese colloquial term that describes a person who believes that they are different and special, that they have hidden powers or possess secret knowledge, and that they are destined for greatness. The word directly translates to second-year disease, because it's common for middle schoolers. This was exactly the case for Yuta Togashi, the protagonist of the show, whose scars that his Chunibyo have left behind are still fresh. He looks back at those times with extreme embarrassment, so much so that he decides to attend a high school far away so that no one will recognize him. Unfortunately for him, at this new school he meets Rika Takanashi, an eccentric young girl that crashes into Yuta's life. His dream of an ordinary, Chubinyo-free life quickly crumble away. The show seems decent from what I've seen of it, and it ran for 12 episodes back in 2012. It also spawned a movie adaptation too. I can't tell you why it's so far down this list. I guess the topic is quite niche, I think. Either way, the views aren't too bad on YouTube either, but this is where it was placed on the Iceberg, so I have to respect that. I was shocked when I saw Pingu in the City on this list, because I had absolutely no idea that Pingu was an anime. It just sounds to me like saying Cory in the House is an anime, but apparently it is. Pingu is also very memed over here in the UK. I don't know how it is around the rest of the world, but I've seen many a Pingu meme in my time. Anyways, Pingu in the City is an anime produced by Sony. It is a reboot of the original series from all the way back in 1990. Its style of animation is stop motion, something we haven't seen yet, but I'll ask the hardcore weebs, what constitutes anime? Is it just live action television, or do movies that are produced in Japan count, like all of that kind of stuff? Does stop motion and claymation count? I don't know. I don't know enough about the concept to cast judgment. Anyways, the show was created in 2017 and ran for 52 episodes over 2 seasons, with the most recent season coming out in early 2019. Will there be a highly anticipated 3rd season? I don't know. Let's move on. In the otaku tier, we're going to talk about Astro Fighter Sunred, which its pilot episode only has 82,000 views in 10 years on YouTube, so we're definitely starting to get into the unknown stuff. Anyways, after seeing the pilot episode, I kind of understand why. The story is basic. It's about a hero who's just too good at his job. All of the villains are trying to ambush him all the time, and he just kicks their asses every single time. The animation is kind of low budget, and I'd say there's only about 1 or 2 things moving in the frame at once. The original manga was created by Makoto Kubota, and it was featured in a little segment of a Square Enix magazine, I believe for about a decade, between 2004 and 2014. The show was created during this time, running from 2008 to 2009. According to IMDb, this show only had 5 episodes, and only has 1 review up on the site, so 5 episodes back in 2008. Of course it's going to be a bit obscure, only 60 people have rated the anime. I'm going to cover Cat Shit One next, and I don't think it's more niche, even though it is lower on the Iceberg, but there's a video here on YouTube that has the full show, and what am I looking at here? I don't quite understand it. But let's be fair, it actually looks pretty sick. The animation quality isn't bad. Even if the movements are weird, there's so much action that's hilariously juxtaposed by these cute little bunnies that are choking out these camels as they whisper shit into their ears. And the life is being brought out from their eyes. Weird show that only had 1 episode that was released all the way back in 2010. I don't know about you guys, but for Disney's next animated blockbuster, I'd like to see them do something similar. I saw the title of this one on the Iceberg, and I knew that I had to cover it. That show being Kamen no Maid Guy, which was originally a comedy manga series that was written and illustrated by Maruboro Akai between 2004 and 2012. An anime adaptation of the manga was directed by Masayuki Sakoi and aired between April and June 2008. The story of the show is that Naeka Fujiwara is the granddaughter of a billionaire and the heir to his fortune. She is pursued by those who desire her inheritance, and so in order to protect her from harm and ensure her a proper upbringing, the mask-made guy is summoned. The show is really fan-servicey. The intro is completely bonkers too. When I saw it, I was like, yeah, okay, what even? Even still, the show has very low views on YouTube. I can't find any video that has more than 10,000 views on the anime, so very under the radar. Moving ever so closer to the bottom of the iceberg, I'm going to be talking about Aku Daisaku-san Surungle next. Now, I think that you might notice that I haven't talked about any mecha anime yet, and that's because for the most part, I think they're all a bit naff. I don't rate them. They all look the exact same to me. However, for all you mecha fans, I don't want to disappoint you. even though I might still do that because Aku Daisaku-san, which I'll be calling Aku from now on for short, Aku has no Wikipedia page on it. Its IMDb page has been rated by 10 people, and it has no written reviews. The show came out in 1983 and ended in 1984, but something that's caught my eye is that this video of the intro has 500,000 views for some reason. I don't know what the title says, but when you compare it to a video such as this one, the second episode of the show that has 154 views in 4 months, it almost makes me wonder what's going on here, but I don't know. The show seems to be almost forgotten entirely except for this one video, but I couldn't tell you why. As for the plot, it's just about a generic, normal guy who has to fight this evil entity, completely cliched premise, and its reviews are average. We're moving into the neat tier, which means we are almost at the bottom of the iceberg. I don't know what neat is, so that doesn't make any sense to me, but anyways, I've come across the Abunai Sisters before, but I never covered them in a video. This has to be one of the ugliest and plain stupidest animes out there. This is a nightmare. The voice acting is god-awful, the dialogue is beyond perverted, the animation is the same. I appreciate anime, I truly do, but my word is some of it complete wank. Like, what am I even looking at here? Seriously, who came up with this? Who greenlit it? Who put money, time and effort into this project? This is by far and away the worst thing I've seen so far. It is the worst. Twinkle Nora Rock Me is often referred to as the worst anime of all time. For me, it's not as bad as the Abunai Sisters, but I can definitely see why it's been called that, because this might be some of the laziest animation that I've ever seen. Like, honestly, this anime is like 1 frame a second, if even that. The movements are awful, the drawings are just plain bad, very little is spelled correctly, the designs are lazy, and the show was only released on VHS and Laserdisc. The writing is stupid, and the character of Nora is so unambiguously horribly thought out. She's a bounty hunter with a bunch of unexplained magic powers that make her extremely OP, so there's no real tension or struggle within the conflict. I don't know if there's anything else I can say. Let's just get to the bottom of this thing. We're going to talk about Saki Sanobashi next, or Go for a Punch. Skip to the time on screen if you see my entry about it in a previous video.
Go for a Punch is potentially fake, I guess, maybe? Its existence is unconfirmed as far as I'm aware, but if you didn't know, it's an allegedly very brutal anime from back in the 80s in which 9 schoolgirls are locked in a bathroom with no windows or doors and each die one by one in a very brutal fashion. The anime could just be a creepypasta designed to scare you, and again, as far as I'm aware, there's never actually been any found footage of the show. Any footage that people claim to be found is just fake. Now, people that were interested in its legitimacy have banded together to create subreddits, r/Sasuke Sanobashi if you're interested, or r/Saskian no Batishtu. I don't know how to pronounce the words, but I'm going to link them in the description. But basically, they banded together to launch investigations to try and find out if it was ever actually made. Some of them have even scoured on the dark web to find this stuff. There have been hoaxes and fake clips designed to try and trick people, but again, as far as we know, if it does exist, it seems to be lost media. But yeah, regardless, if you're interested in trying to find out a little bit more about it, because it is quite an interesting concept, I'm going to link both Reddits in the description.
And finally, I'll talk about Before the 1960s anime, which I think is a myth. I can't be certain though, because at least online it says the anime began in the 60s, so I'm not entirely sure how could there be an anime before the 60s. However, if you do know any anime that was created before the 60s, please let me know in the comments, because at least from what I've seen online, there are very few. I found this Mole's Adventure from 1958, which is a 9-minute short film, but other than that, there isn't too much. So if you know any, just let me know down in the comments. Anyways, that's it from me. I really want to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, would you mind subscribing? It would really help me out. Follow me on my socials, that's Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, join my Discord, a link for all of those in the description. Shout out to my patrons KH101101 and Chris M, who are mega legends, as well as EO Mersin, or however you pronounce your name, the original creator of this Iceberg. Shout out, my good sir. Apologies for my voice again, I still have COVID, but, it is what it is. And finally, please let me know down in the comments what you'd like to see me do next, as I'm only 60 videos in, and I'm already out of ideas. Thank you for watching.